I want you to look at something, and it's weird, but it is a consistent theme of late when we have these terror attacks. Wall Street just sort of collectively shrugs. The Dow of 11.5 points, it has been kind of that way, in and out of positive territory pretty much all day. Why is that? Michael Block, Charlie Gasparino. Michael, why?
Well, what are we concerned about here? Okay, this is a tragic event. It's scary, makes us feel real, bad about it. It makes us a little nervous as we walk down the street for a day or two. This is life. This is reality. It's what we've gotten used to over the past 15 years at least. What does it really mean? Today you have some airline stocks and some travel-related stocks taking a hickey. But, we look at this, we see the authorities and what they're doing. What we've seen over the past 6 weeks or so as we've rallied is the Fed's become more accommodative, the ECB has become more accommodative.
European Central Bank.
And apparently that still matters.
In Brussels.
The game that's been going on for 7 years still matters, and that's all people care about, not the fundamentals. Everyone gets negative at the same time. They're still accommodative. We just keep going. Hard to fight.
I would say there's two ways of looking at it. If you go back to like the 1990 bombing of the London Stock Exchange, right? You've seen that since then, since consecutive terrorist attacks, that the impact on the market, the time that it took the market to recover, I should say, has diminished. From then to 9/11 to some of the recent stuff. That said, here's the problem that we run up against. When some of this stuff is repetitive, which is starting to become repetitive, we've seen this more and more. Paris wasn't that long ago. San Bernardino wasn't that long ago. Then this happens. And here's the one thing that I've learned from George Soros, and it has nothing to do with his political philosophy. It has to do with the way he looks at the markets and trends and herd mentality. When the herd starts thinking that terrorism is an issue, when the herd starts thinking, well, this is going to have an impact on consumer spending and some other issues, the markets will take a bath. Now, what does it take to do that? I can't tell you. There's got to be an inflection point.
All right. Another thing I think Charles Payne was mentioning earlier here, this notion that, for one thing, it's not here. And they breathe a sigh of relief at that, territorial as that is. But another, it could change if there's a rapidity to these attacks. They happen more frequently. Then we might not be so sanguine. What do you make of that?
Look, at what point does this become, a fact where people are afraid to walk the streets, people are afraid to go to work, people are afraid to let their kids go to school? That's not what's happening here. Like, we've become conditioned for it. Charlie mentioned something about 1990. It's interesting. I remember working on the hedge fund side in 2001. And, everyone was, 9/11, obviously, tragic event, and everyone was thinking about it. My boss, who had worked in Europe during those years and when things were going on in Paris, in London, with some frequency, said, we've been through this before. Everything's going to be okay.
But I do wonder about if we have the frequency.
Yeah, it's the frequency, and it's when the herd changes. Listen, I mean, let's break it down. Fundamentally, if you blow up I hate to put it into anybody's head, but when the New York Stock Exchange was down during 9/11, trading did stop. You could not get prices on a lot of stocks because most of the trading, especially the big company stocks that traded through the stock exchange, couldn't be traded.
4 trading days, right?
Start from Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, came back Monday. Yeah, 4 trading days. So. That's a big thing. You're not going to have that because of the way the market is structured now. But I will say this, and this is where it becomes kind of a guessing game, and if you're a small investor, it's hard to figure it out. When is the inflection point where people say, we have a real global terror issue, not just random attacks that can't be contained, and it's going to be...
In other words, the world looks like it's behind on fighting this.
Let's talk inflection points, though, because I think it has a lot to do with what's going on over the past few weeks and again today. Charlie, you mentioned George Soros and the herd mentality. Well, what I'll tell you is a guy whose name I'd mention in the same breath with George Soros, not George, and I won't say his name here. When I asked him, hey, what's going on here? What's happened over the past few weeks? Why are we rallying? He said, well, go back to mid-February. Everyone looked at these energy and metals companies and thought that those stocks were going to zero. That was a misconception. That was the herd saying they're all going to hell, they're all going bankrupt. That was a bit wrong. Maybe these stocks have weak fundamentals.
But is the world now cocky on the other side, too?
Well, I would argue they are. When I know I'm going to be right that the world is too cocky is when everyone starts mistaking market action for fundamentals. When guys start saying, hey, the economy's a lot better, we're going to grow at 5% this year because stocks are up and they're telling us that.
Here's where the herd...
That's the disconnect.
I agree. And here's where the herd really changes. When you start getting traders and analysts imputing the potential cost to consumer spending on another terrorist attack. That is not really happening yet. But that could happen. And listen, you hate to say it could, and because you don't want to project something this tragic, but I mean, it is a possibility that something this bad could happen here. If it could occur there, It could happen here, even though we have theoretically better security and intelligence. And when that happens, you know, that's where it really becomes an issue here.
Very good. Final thoughts?
Yeah, that's what it comes down to. The thing is, how will people take that, and what will the authorities do about that? I've been saying for a while that, you know, Europe's hope out of this is that they'll actually look at the refugee crisis and start throwing money at these issues, you know, enacting fiscal policy.
They need refugees there.
With events like today, Merkel has no power. She's already losing popularity. She can't do it. So what's the answer? More monetary policy.
Yeah, but they need,
and that's fake.
They do need refugees over there.
That's a whole separate.
They have a huge demographic.
Hey, I'm with you there. I don't want to
thank you there. Bottom line, I can see Angela Merkel's poll numbers collapsing as she's speaking.